Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and I have some big news to share for the Lord of the Rings Online, and that is that we have the 2021 Producers Letter, which I'm going to be taking a look at today. Basically, this letter will give a roadmap for what we can expect for the Lord of the Rings Online for the year from, again, the executive producer, who is Severlin. And for the background gameplay, I might have a little bit of relevant parts for what I will be talking about, but mostly it will just be random LOTRO stuff that is yet to be determined. But to actually jump into the letter, one of the big things of the letter is a lot of it is stuff we already know and I have covered on my channel, from a few sneak peeks and just general various bits of information we've been given over the past few months. But there are some very nice details that we will be getting to. And at the start of the letter, it does state that LOTRO is coming to its 14th anniversary later this year. I think that'll be about a month from now. So as far as the first big update of 2021 goes, that will happen in March with the release of Wildwood, and that still does not have an actual release date. It just says March in here, and I think a lot of players are suspecting that it will be with the Spring Festival next week, and I'm personally hoping it will be, but we will see because there's no actual confirmation of that. And for people unfamiliar, Wildwood currently is in beta. At the time of this video, it's actually in the third round of the beta, so we have a lot of information on it from the beta and just previous teases of the area, and I have a lot of videos covering that type of stuff if you're interested, so I won't dive too deep into it, but just go over the generalities with it. And Wildwood is going to be a level 45 area, and it's a part of Breland, actually. It is kind of that wilderness area between Breland and Evendem. And again, it's level 45 content, but it brings two new instances. One of them scales level 20 plus with the Old Forest, and another is 45 plus with Foracle. But to get back to the producer's letter with Wildwood, there are going to be two reputation factions there that you work with to defeat enemies, basically, and this is going to be a below level cap region, and it will actually have some level cap content with mainly the instances as well. So there is a lot going on there, and players who are not at the level cap can actually enjoy the content that is going to be coming in this major update. And as far as I know, it will be releasing as a regular quest pack. I know that's been a big question from the community with that. But kind of interestingly, after the note of Wildwood and the producer's letter, they talk about the Spring Festival, which is also in March, and they will be adding some new festivity, it sounds like, to the event, featuring Grimbeorn himself. There will also be the new 6-player boss from the vaults for Naruhel the Red Maid. That is the Gartha Garwin boss for anybody unfamiliar, and that actually is available for testing in the Wildwood beta as well. But finally, it sounds like they have some exciting seasonally themed cosmetics and other rewards coming with the Spring Festival as well. So I'll be interested in checking those out, see if I can get my characters some good outfits. But then after the Wildwood update, they are planning the new feature called Further Adventures. That's going to be their first release in the system. And we've had a minor tease of what First Adventures is already, but they actually give a lot of good detail here. So it sounds like the first Further Adventures here will involve Bilbo Baggins, one of the most famous hobbits. And this is all they have planned right now, it sounds like, but it actually says in the producer's letter, if you enjoy it, as in the player base, I guess it's well received, they're open to doing more Further Adventures later in the year. And to me, the idea of Further Adventures sounds really fun. It basically, as it says, lets you explore new stories involving the major and minor characters in Middle-earth, and we'll start with Bilbo Baggins. So that sounds very interesting to me, and I think it can be a very fun story experience, but we will see on that how it actually plays out. And I think the mission system is a good system that you could actually fit something like that into, especially if it has a nice progression for the story that is involved there. And just as the producer's letter says, you can actually suggest characters you'd like to see in these narrative mission sets for the future. So if you have any of that, I would definitely recommend suggesting characters to Standing Stone games for future Further Adventures after the first one. Moving on from that, we do have some information on Update 30, which is going to be called the Blood of Azog. And it sounds like that continues with the War of Three Peaks storyline with the Legacy of Durin and the Trials of the Dwarves. So as the War of Three Peaks goes on, we're going to get a look at Durin Stonehelmson, and he's going to prepare to lead the Gabalaka. That's the big faction going on in Elderslade, especially with the Gabalaka missions. But they're going to be going beyond the Frozen Gates to Mount Gundabad. And it sounds like the dwarves want to muster even more dwarves to Elderslade to get going to Gundabad, so Prince Durin will be sending word to Lonely Mountain before the actual battle for Gundabad begins. And during this time, in this update, we'll be discovering the tale of Hermeth Stormhammer, it sounds like, and he's a hero of the Battle of Azanilbizar. I'm probably going to butcher a bunch of these Dwarvish names, but it sounds like we will be going back in time to experience important moments in the history of Durin's folk, such as the taking of Oakenshield, the death of Azog, and even the dangers of Durin's Bane and more, and it will feature an interlude, Update 30. And I think that, to me, sounds like, as far as I know, Mordor Besiege, which went back in time to the Second Age. I don't know exactly how that will work with Update 30. Of course, we're just getting a little bit of a tease here in the producer's letter, but to me, the way Mordor Besieged actually worked and you went back in time in the interlude, I thought that was very fun and just gave a little bit of a kind of brand new experience in LOTRO somehow, going again back in time there in the Second Age for the way the interlude was for Mordor Besieged. So that actually excites me, and it lets you maybe see some stuff you wouldn't normally expect to see in a third kind of going into Fourth Age Middle Earth that we have in the Lord of the Rings Online right now. But along with Update 30, it has the pretty standard stuff. It has a new quest, of course, so I assume a new zone to go with that. And it does say there will be new missions, so they're continuing the mission system in that. But one highlight is actually there will be a new raid in the quest pack. That, to me, is personally unexpected that they would have a raid for the first major update, rather the last major update before Gundabad. So there will be a raid there, and that is a quest pack, and they actually highlight that it's free to VIPs, like contrasting the whole mini expansion with War of Three Peaks experience. But after Update 30, the next major release will continue with the storyline with the Legacy of Durin and the Trials of Dwarves, and Durin will be entering Gundabad. That is where we will be going with Update 31. That will be a major expansion with Gundabad, and they don't have a lot to share right now. They want to share a lot more in the coming months, it sounds like. We've had a lot of teases with Gundabad, but no solid information on the expansion. They're really holding back giving us anything on that. They want to keep it all under wraps at the moment. And yeah, that just continues the Legacy of Durin and the Trials of Dwarves for the storyline. And after that, it's going to actually conclude the storyline with that. So after Update 31, we're of course not given information, but it sounds like 2022 is wide open for possibilities. I think a lot of people might want to see Volume 5 continued and go along there, or they can do other story-based content, kind of like we've had with the Black Book of Mordor and the Legacy of Durin and the Trials of Dwarves, continue things like that and different adventures in the game. To me, it's a lot of exciting possibilities. That's why I am stressing on about it here, even though it's technically not in the producer's letter. It's just because they're wrapping up the full storyline there, the possibilities after that seem fairly endless within the game. But next up, we are actually going to take a shift from major content releases to the Legendary Worlds. And for both Anor and Ithil, they're planning to bring the Waste, which is going to be the level 105 update in April, which is a month from now. Don't have an exact release date of that, but sometime next month we will be getting the Waste and level 105, which means the Throne of the Dreadtear raid, which I think will excite a lot of people that play on those servers, such as myself and my kinship. And then they also want to do Mordor in August. That's going to be relatively soon. It's only 4 months, I believe, after the Waste will be coming, but perhaps that could be exciting. And going to Mordor, Mordor right now is not my favorite place, but we'll see if I can enjoy it more on the Legendary Worlds the second time around. And then they even mentioned they could go to the Grey Mountains, which would be the level 120 update, I believe, to the Legendary Worlds later in the year, which sounds to me like it could be December, which would kind of match up with when Gondor was released to the Legendary servers. So overall for me, I think that sounds exciting for the Legendary servers, even though I personally feel like it could be a little bit slower, but it's not that big of a deal. And I think it's more just because of my playstyle, and especially streaming and doing YouTube, I tend to run through content a little bit slower than the average person probably, so I just always feel like I still have a bunch to do even on those servers. But it still is exciting nonetheless that we'll be getting more there, and we actually have a proper roadmap this time. I feel like for the Legendary servers we haven't had a proper roadmap in a while, and actually knowing when stuff will advance, that is a very good thing, because now I, as a player, and people that do play on those servers, can actually plan out their time and plan out their progression better, knowing when stuff in the future will release. So that is a very good part of this producer's letter that is maybe more minor for a lot of people, but I like it. Anyway, moving on from that, we do have a couple notes on PvMP and legendary items. So for player versus monster player, they mentioned that they have a designer who is going to be regularly working on player versus monster player, and they want to address a lot of the concerns for PvMP balance and stuff like that. And this is something we already knew. Again, given this information, but having it in concrete writing is always good with that, and knowing for sure that somebody is working basically dedicated, it sounds like, on PvMP is good and working on the balance. I personally don't play PvMP, but I know there can sometimes, like other parts of the game, that I am critical about, people complain about stuff about balance issues, so having anything more updated with that I think is a good thing. But then there's the big topic of legendary items in the grind. So they do not actually mention a complete rework of the legendary items in this producer's letter. I'll talk more about that later, but for the legendary items, their focus this year will be to speed up LI leveling, which is great for players not at endgame, and then they want to make the new regions more appealing for players to actually work on their items. That is a big critical part I have about the legendary item system, and about some of the recent changes and recent kind of increases with grind that they've done with it, is that the older areas were always better actually to farm your legendary item stuff like Scrolls of Empowerment and Starlight Crystals. In particularly, the level 105 Throne of the Dread Terror raid was always very good and perhaps the best option to upgrade your LI. So it sounds like they're trying to make the newer regions more appealing and the best places to actually work on your items, while also speeding up the leveling process for people not at endgame, because that is a big issue. If you're just jumping into LOTRO and wanting to get towards endgame, it can be very slow to level your LI, and it's a lot of grind. That's definitely something I'm critical about with the game, so hopefully we see these kind of band-aid type fixes before we get a full LI revamp. And that is actually one thing I want to point out with this producer's letter compared to some from the previous years, is there is honestly not a lot here. We get a good roadmap for the year, but one thing I feel like with previous producer's letter is they would talk about stuff that actually did not come to fruition, basically, and this one seems a lot more grounded in reality with what we can actually expect with LOTRO. So there is not a lot of like different hype stuff. Like even a couple of years ago, I think there was a note about kinships and them doing a kinship rework. There was also that Eye of Sauron legendary servers, which of course we never got last year, and that was in last year's producer's letter, and they even mentioned in legendary item revamp in one of the producer's letter lately, and we never actually fully got that. So there's just a lot of stuff like that that seems like it was previously actually put in producer's letter, but again never came to fruition. It never was a reality for the game. So as much as it would be exciting to actually have a lot of that type of stuff for this year, I think it is better that they're giving more realistic expectations and a more realistic roadmap for the year. So again, it could seem disappointing that there's not a lot of that exciting stuff, but I think it is actually good that the producer's letter overall is short and they're not over promising stuff basically. Alright, so that is all for the producer's letter, and I do want to summarize a little bit of what we are getting. And first, we do have Update 29 Wildwood, which is in beta right now and should hopefully be releasing anytime soon. And then it sounds like there will be kind of a major Spring Festival update to make the festival bigger and better than it is right now, or at least previous iterations of it, so that is exciting. And a new instance, Boss from the Vaults, which I love the Boss from the Vault, so that should be exciting for me with that. And then we're getting the new Further Adventures feature, which will use the mission system, and that will deliver new story content for major and minor characters throughout Middle Earth again, and we're starting with Bilbo Baggins with that. And then after that, we will have Update 30 for the summer update, and that will be the Blood of Azog, which will be level 130 cap content with the new raid. There will be the new interlude with that, the new missions, and it will continue the Legacy of Durna and the Trials of Dwarves storyline with going towards Gundabad. And then finally, for Update 31 in the fall, we will be getting Gundabad, which there is actually something with Gundabad that was not in the producer's letter, which is the Brawler class. I find that kind of odd that it was not actually in the letter. It seems like it'd be a huge feature that's coming to LOTRO in 2021, a brand new class. So I thought that was a little bit odd that it wasn't actually specifically mentioned in the producer's letter, but that will be coming with Gundabad or around Gundabad. Potentially before Gundabad is actually what it seems like they're trying to get it done for. But anyway, after Gundabad, but moving on from Gundabad, we were also given a proper legendary server roadmap for the releases with that, which I'm actually very happy to know what is going on with those servers. And we got a little bit of info about perhaps lessening the grind of legendary items, at least before they can say anything specific about a full rework or revamp that they are working on, it sounds like, in the background, but nothing on that specifically in the producer's letter. And that is what we had. So overall, I think 2021 is a very exciting year for the Lord of the Rings Online, but I also think it's very critical depending how things go and progress from some of like the 2020 ongoing issues with the game. Thinking things like the communication from the developers and Standing Stone Games and the such, which I must say a lot of that has improved so far in 2021. So hopefully we can continue that improved trend. Otherwise, I think, again, it could be a very critical year depending how things like that go, basically. And I also think the Gundabad and Brawler releases could be very important to LOTRO, how those are received and how the expansions go. But overall, I am excited for them. There's just a little bit, I think, to be cautious about, or that I am cautious about, and think it's fair mentioning that. But as far as this video goes, I hope you all enjoyed the news from the producer's letter. And as far as content for my channel, what to expect in the future regarding all this stuff, I do hope to cover everything, but for the more immediate future, I plan to focus my time covering Update 29 Wildwood when we actually get the release and the patch for that, and going through the content, the new instances. I have a lot of video ideas planned that I would like to do covering Update 29 Wildwood in the near future, and then after that we will see how things go. But again, as far as this video, I hope you all learned something useful about LOTRO in 2021 and the producer's letter, and I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did, please consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content. And thanks for watching, everyone.